What's going on, guys? It's Chandler here at the channel. Come back to you again with another video. Sorry it's been a little bit since we uploaded. However, I've been working on something really cool and I think you're going to enjoy it. Either that or you're going to hate it altogether because it seems to be a really polarizing topic on YouTube for some reason. And that is painting your guns. We're either going to ruin a rifle for you today or make it a lot better. And I hope it is the latter. The gun in question is my BCM 14.5 and we're going to paint it up something that we haven't done on this channel yet. So we're going to use 3 cans of paint, 3 different colors, and a Cryptek style stencil for the design. We'll give you a sneak peek here first. Painted 3 magazines, the rifle and the EOTech, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Now, unfortunately, the most tedious part of the process is where you start, and that's preparation before the paint. You're going to want to clean the entire gun of all residue, make sure that you've got everything that you don't want paint on either taken off or taped up before you get started. Once you've got everything taped up and ready to go, you'll obviously want to get everything set up and get your paint. For these 3 colors, you've got khaki, dark brown, and olive green. You can move everything that you want painted into place after you've got your setup, making sure to put a drop cloth or cardboard down to make sure you don't get paint on anything you don't want paint on. So what I'm doing is actually starting on my magazines to make sure I like the pattern before I move to painting the rifle. So we're going to put down a base coat of this tan, light tan khaki color on each magazine, making sure to use light strips over each one so we don't have too much paint or drip in the process. After you get that first side done, go ahead and flip it over once it's dry, making sure that all your tape is still in the right place, and you're going to just repeat the process. Even coat on the paint, not too much, make sure it doesn't drip. Again, if it's not totally even or it is kind of looking like there's more spotty in some places, that's okay. What's going to end up happening was you go in with your second color, it's going to cover it up just fine. Then go over with your second color, nice even strips. After you've got that taken care of, then comes the stencil. Now this is probably the most fun part in my opinion, laying out the stencil, getting it how you want it, and then spraying over nice and close to make sure you get a good clean pattern on each one. Now you can do this different ways for each magazine that you have. Obviously it depends on how you want it, but you can really customize it to what you want. You don't want to make every one of them exactly the same. That way they do have some differences. I don't like to anyway, but you can do however you like. These all just kind of have random angles of the pattern and I think they look great. But again, it's really customizable at this point with the stencils of what you want to do. So go crazy with it. We'll move on and move our rifle into frame. I like that pattern quite a bit, so I think we're gonna stick with it. We'll start with our tan again and move and do those diagonal paths there along the rifle in equal spacing. Go across everything, try to make sure it's as consistent as possible and go back over if you need to. Just remember not to add too much to make it drip. You don't want any drip marks on the rifle because the paint will kind of pool a little bit in the different nooks on the rifle. And while you're waiting for that to dry, go ahead and admire your work from your magazines. Peel off the tape, probably the most satisfying part. Make sure that it had a good clean break on it. On this one, as you can see on mine, it wasn't really as clean as I wanted or a clean of a line, but it'll work. Now we're gonna get started on our second color, the dark brown, doing the same thing as we did the first. Now this one does have a little bit wider of a spray nozzle on the end of it, so I am kind of trying to account for that, but just repeat the same pattern and then flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. This one for me took a little bit longer to go through. I wanted to make sure and plan out the stripes as best as I could, so that way it matched the other side the best that I could. You can see going back and forth through there, it's kind of being a little cautious about it, making sure to match it the best I can, lifted up the stock and the rifle itself so that way I can make sure to match it and do the stripes and diagonal at the same location or just about in the same location as I did before. You can be as intricate or as non as you want, but however, I'm trying to keep the stripes as uniform as I can in order to match the other side. Then come back through with the dark brown and go over it. This doesn't have to be perfect either, but as long as the colors are in the place that I want them to be, it should turn out pretty well. And don't really worry about clean lines. You're not going to get clean lines, and that's kind of the point, is you're trying to get rid of those clean lines. But when you go through it, anything or mistake you may make, it's probably going to be covered by stencil anyway. Then comes my favorite part again, and that is figuring out the stencil for your rifle. Obviously we're using the same pattern, going back over with that green, getting as close as you can to get nice clean lines. You obviously don't have to do this exact way. The farther away you are with the stencil, the more haze the lines are going to be. I kind of like to use a mix of them as I'm going through and doing the design. So on some areas I've got a lot closer and a lot cleaner lines with the stencil, and in other areas I like to get a little bit farther back to kind of distort and blend that color of green into the other two under it. It works for me, I like it quite a bit. You can make it as sharp or as dull as you want. It's really up to you to have as much or as little pattern as you want on the gun. Originally, I didn't think on this design I wanted to have much pattern, but in the end, the more I put on there, the more I liked it, so I just went. Now once you get your paint to dry, you come to honestly the best part in the process, and that is taking the tape off to admire your work. One thing at a time, mag well first, followed by the trigger, some cutie sling mounts to take off. Then comes the forward assist, making sure that your paint is dry and you do not mess with that paint job after it is completed. Now we start taking the paint off from the EOTech. Obviously, this was my most nervous part of the process because I've painted a rifle before, but I'd never painted an optic. So I was really hoping that no loose paint got in there, and it doesn't look like it did. So that's a good sign. Honestly, EOTechs are pretty annoying to tape up considering the shroud around the lens housing as well as how the lockup is for the battery. But you know, it just took a little bit of time and a bit more intricacy, but I think it turned out really well. Took off the tape from the O-ring and battery cover, then from the adjustment switches. It's your preference if you want those covered or not. I preferred to have them too, so that way I could kind of keep it to still see my adjustment. Put that back on, close it up. I think it looks great. Obviously, since I turned the gun around about 3 or 4 times to take a look at what I've painted here, honestly, I am pretty pleased with the process. Just checking the dust cover did its job and kept paint out. The bolt looks great. A little bit on there, but do a function check. Everything looks to be performing as intended. Bolt is still smooth, as well as our bad lever functioning as intended. From there, we'll go up to the muzzle brake, take that off. Hopefully when you did this, you use multiple layers. It's really not as big of a deal if you're not going to attach anything onto the front of your muzzle brake. However, since I do intend on buying a suppressor for this at some point, I did make sure to put a few extra layers to make sure that interface would not get interfered with. With the final product here, let us know how I did. Did we ruin, according to you guys, another perfectly good rifle? I don't think so. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Extremely satisfied with the result. Let us know what you think about it down in the comment section below. That's gonna about do it for this video, guys. This has been Chandler with Range Day, where every day is Range Day. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.